Hello, everybody. We're going to give everyone a few seconds to come in. Hopefully we are live. It says we're live. Shows that audio is good. Looks like we have about 33 people in the stream. Just wondering if we can get somebody to just give me a thumbs up that says the audio and the video is okay. I'll wait on that, but if you can, someone let me know if the audio and video is okay. Appreciate it. Audio great. Okay. And I'm assuming you can see me. Thanks, Bob. I tried reaching out to Pam. I sent her a message as well to see if she could join. I never did hear back from Pam. The two of you are the only two mods that are on the channel at this point. So I thought it'd be a little easier if you had some help here, but we'll try to get a couple other mods set up here on the channel for you, Bob, and give you a little bit of help. But anyways, thank you everybody for showing up. If this is your first time stopping by the TM Aquatics channel, my YouTube channel, whether you're watching this on the replay or you're here live, thank you. I'm humbled that you have decided to spend some of your time here watching me or watching my videos. One thing I want to make clear, and I like to do this on a lot of my videos, I want to make it very clear that I am not an expert. I do focus a lot of my time and attention right now on Corydoras and plecos, but I'm not an expert. I am simply a hobbyist, no different than any of you watching. I would like to consider myself an experienced hobbyist, but still a hobbyist. And I just want to make that clear because I've been referred to as an expert or a specialist or all-knowing this or all-knowing that, and that couldn't be further from the truth, and I do mean that. So I'm just a hobbyist, no different than you. The fact that I have a YouTube channel and a camera and I make videos doesn't make me any more knowledgeable than any of you. But I do appreciate each and every one of you stopping by and taking time to watch this. If this is your first time stopping by my streams, this is actually only my second live stream. And my live streams are a little different than many of the other live streams that you're going to see on YouTube. A lot of the live streams are simply interaction between the streamer and chat, and it's a lot of Q&A. It's exclusively Q&A. My streams are a little bit different. My streams are more of a show or a production. It's very information-centric, and I do have an outline for the stream, and if time allows, I'll do some Q&A towards the end. I was watching KG Tropicals the other day, and he was talking about not streaming anymore on his channel. And he made the comment that, let me just fix this camera, it's about to fall off an edge here. He mentioned that he likes to be more information-centric with his live streams, and he doesn't feel that the Q&A live streams are his thing. And I kind of feel the same way. I feel that I'm better at just presenting the material and presenting the information that I've put together for the stream, because that's really what I do for a living, is present material and information to my clients. But I don't know if I would like the Q&A style stream. I'm going to be doing that as we move forward with some private streams or member-only streams. I'll talk about that in a minute. And it will be simply more just Q&A and small room chat, if you will. But it's been about 6 months since my first stream, my first and only stream that I did. And I think that was back in early June. I wasn't quite sure at that time if it was something that I wanted to do. The amount of time that was invested into putting that stream together, gathering material, doing the research, learning to use OBS, which is the stream program that I'm using, it took quite a bit of time. It took probably as much time as it would have taken me to come up with 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 edited videos. So I really wasn't sure, but this stream still took a lot of time to put together, but not nearly as much, because now I know OBS and it just came together a lot easier and a lot quicker. What I do know, though, is that I'm not going to be a regular streamer. I'm still going to be focused on making edited content, but I still want to stream, and I still want to put this style of stream out. After that first stream, I did get a lot of positive feedback, and people liked how it was a little different from just about all the other streams, or most of the other streams that you see out there. I know Aquarium Co-op and Dan, they start, Dan's Fish, oftentimes they'll have topics, and it's very topic-centric and detailed, and then they go off into Q&A after that. But I did receive a lot of comments and feedback. Now, how often I'm going to do this, I don't know. I kind of want it to be more of still a special one-off thing for the channel. I'm not going to be doing it every night. I'm not going to be doing it every week. I don't know that I'll be doing it every month. I'm kind of thinking on a quarterly basis. We'll just have to wait and see. In order for me to move forward and stream more, I wanted to make sure that I was appealing to a wider group of people than I often see in a lot of these streams. And I want to make sure that I say this right, because I don't want to sound disrespectful, because that's not what I mean. But a lot of the streams, I see the same 30 or 40, 50 people from the Fish fam in the chat, and that's all. And I wanted to make sure that my streams, if I was going to move forward and continue to do this, I wanted to make sure that I appealed to a larger audience than that. And we ended up getting a little over 2,700 views off that first stream, so it did turn out rather well. And because we got that many views, again, I think I'm going to continue to do this. Again, frequency is still up in the air right now. Now, as far as tonight's agenda, I do have quite a bit of stuff that I want to cover, and I want to make sure we end it around 7:55 so that we can all jump over to Dan's Fish and watch his live stream, because I am a perennial lurker on Dan's streams. I don't miss a single one. I'm always there. I'm always lurking, always in the fish room at that time. But tonight, this is the general outline or agenda that I'm going to be covering. And, so as you can see, there are quite a few things that we're going to be touching on. Now, with that said, depending on time, might have to skip over some things and might have to shorten a few things up, etc. The first thing that I want to talk about is channel membership. And I recently enabled channel membership, but before I did that, I thought it over. I've been thinking about it for quite a long time. And I know channel membership isn't something that everybody is fond of. And I understand that. I get it. I looked at a lot of different channels and what they offer for their membership. And I was surprised to see that there were some that did some great things, like Aquarium Co-op. You're part of their fish club. You get access to all of their expert speakers that come in. You're part of a fish club. And with Dan's Fish, you get, I believe he's offering discounts on his fish, and you get access to things before other people. And I was surprised, though, that there's some that really don't do much. And that was my concern, is that if I enabled channel membership, that it would just look like a money grab. I didn't want that to be the case. I wanted to make sure before I ever enabled channel membership that I could create enough value and deliver enough content when I ask for your membership, or in exchange for your membership, I should say. Never going to ask for your membership, but I do appreciate your membership. So I wanted to make sure that I would be able to deliver enough content. And I think I was able to pull that off. And actually, we're going to jump over to a different screen here real quick. That's easier to see on this. I have it pulled up, and I have 3 different levels of channel membership, starting out with the Pleco Fry. That's $2.99 a month. And in addition to the badges and the emojis, you get shout outs, you get access to members only photos and status updates. There's going to be members only live chat opportunities, prior to responses to comments. I'm going to answer your questions before anybody else. And then you're also going to get access to the members only shorts. There's another level after that called the Bushy Nose level, where you're going to get everything that I just mentioned, but you're going to get access or exclusive member only videos, member-only live streams, and Fish Room Cam, which I have this idea in my mind. I just don't know how to make it work yet. So for those that are already members, I just want to say I thank you for your membership, and thank you for your patience as I try to figure out this Fish Room Cam. The members-only live streams, I believe I have that figured out now, so we're gonna try that. Then there's another level called the Zebra Pleco level, and that's going to be if you have a breeding project and you're stuck and you just maybe want to talk to somebody else one-on-one, that's what the Zebra Pleco level would be. And that's for $9.99 a month. And that's going to allow you and I to have individual conversations about what are you doing? What have you tried? What haven't you tried? The intent is to have a real open discussion and share ideas that are inevitably going to help you get your fish breeding, whatever they are. Stir-bite cories, plecos of whatever type. I don't know if you would need to be a Zebra Pleco member every month of the year. If you want to, great, thank you for the support. But maybe you just want to jump up to that level for 1 or 2 months as we try to figure out whatever species it is that you're working with. But those are so that's channel membership. Let's go back to our other screen here. We're going to take that down. And I do, with that being said, with members, with the membership, I do want to thank, before we move any further, those that have already jumped on board with memberships early. Chris, John, Fishymon, Stephanie at Aquaria Life, Michael, Peplin Creek, Maria, Todor, Mr. D. Costa, Josh, Shady Graded, Daryl Dimer, B. Blahoyak, Jeffrey, Marius, Fishy Z, Mike, Mitch Pope, Jeff Kane, Dustin, and Tristan. So a big thank you to each and every one of you helping the channel get off on a good start with channel membership. I definitely appreciate it. I already had a few really deep dive conversations with a couple of you. I've enjoyed it. And hopefully the information that I've been able to provide has been helpful for you or given you some other things to talk about. I'm going to switch screens again here. I'm going to change something over. One want to talk about an upcoming event that probably most of you have not heard about or heard much about, especially on other streams, because it's not a real big event. It's not like Aquashella. It's probably not even as big as I've been hearing a lot about Keystone Clash. The Catfish Cataclysm is an event that's held in Madison, Wisconsin every 2 years. And it's been a fantastic event for catfish nerds like myself. They bring in some really good speakers. They're bringing in speakers that they know catfish. I mean, we're talking about people like Jeremy Bash, Dr. Eric Thomas. We're talking about Rob McClure, who's bred more Corydorus in the United States than anybody else. I think when I talked to Rob last, I thought he said he had like 200 different species of Corydorus that he's bred. I could be wrong on that number. So, but it's just mind staggering to think how many species he's bred when I think I'm at like 25, and I thought, well, that's quite a few. No, not really. But Cataclysm is a great event. They have door-to-door room sales, people bringing in fish, selling out of their hotel rooms, and that is where you can find some fantastic deals. For example, last time someone was selling the L134 Pleco. It typically isn't a real hard Pleco to find, except when you pass up on being able to buy them at $10 a piece at Cataclysm. Then you decide a couple weeks later you want them and you can't find them. And then when you do, now they're 30 or 35 bucks. But those are the types of deals. I bought my CW49s, my Black Diamond Corydorus. I bought from Andy Hudson from Aquion. He's a rep at Aquion. I bought, how many did I get from him? I think it was 14. CW49, the Black Diamond Corydorus. This is a top-end Corydorus. This is a high-dollar Corydorus. I think Dan was selling them, I could be wrong, but I think he was selling them like close to 50 bucks a piece. I picked up 14 for $100. Those are the types of deals you can find at Cataclysm. You're going to find the stuff that's hard to find, that you don't see at your LFS, that you don't see on, like Get Gills. You might see them on Dan's Fish on his website, because Dan brings in a lot of different fish, a lot of unique things, but you're not going to get them at the price point anywhere else like you can at Cataclysm at the room-to-room sales. It's just a fantastic event. They also have silent auctions, etc., raffles, all the fun stuff. Couple field trips are in there. The best part, really, though, is just being able to hang out with other fish nerds for 3 or 4 days. That's the best part. On Sunday, the last day of the event, the Aquarium Society in Madison has a club auction, and anybody that attends Cataclysm can attend that auction. And any leftover fish from Cataclysm, whether it be room sales or Cataclysm actually brings in fish and then they sell them, anything that hasn't been sold and is still left over, a lot of that ends up in the auction. And that's where you can find, again, some really fantastic deals. Now, this year, it's going to be a little different. Cataclysm was always a standalone event. And because it was, catfish centric, catfish aren't as popular as maybe, cichlids. It hasn't been a real big, heavily attended event. This year, though, they are teaming up with the American Cichlid Association, and they are having a joint get-together, a joint convention. So it's going to be much larger. It's going to appeal to a much greater audience. And I think it's just going to be a fantastic thing. Now, it is going to be earlier in the year. Typically, Cataclysm is in October. This year, this joint event, they're calling it the Combo Plate. It is July 13th through the 16th, again, in Madison, Wisconsin. So I do want to say, I do believe Peplin Creek and Foxy are planning to be there. I think I heard them say that somewhere. So Brian, Foxy, if you guys are going to be there, we got to try and hook up. We'd love to meet the two of you, and anybody else that attends. I think that'd be fantastic, just to group up, get together, maybe go grab a cold beverage and talk fish tank nerd stuff. That would be wonderful. So That is the Cataclysm event that is coming up here this July 13th through the 20 or through the 16th, 13th through the 16th. All right, I'm going to jump back over here real quick and kind of lost my place on my outline here. Let me get caught up here real quick. There's been a couple videos recently. Tazawa Tanks did one. Bentley Pasco did one here recently about experts. And, I always mention that I'm not an expert. I'm simply a hobbyist just like you. And that's true. And it all, I think, spurred from a Facebook post. And Bentley went into that in a little more detail in his stream. But every so often, you do have the opportunities to actually connect with true experts or see a video or an interview of a true expert. And recently there was a YouTube video that was put out, and it was put out by, I'm going to butcher the name, Paraíso Pleco. And it was an interview with Hans-Georg Evers. And if you're a catfish nerd, you've probably heard this name, or you should have heard this name by now. This is an expert, and watching this video, you just know that. He's been on 30-some collection trips to South America. I think he said it was 30-some. Dozens of trips anyways. Let's just say that. It's been dozens of trips to South America. So he's been to the rivers. He's seen the habitats, the biotopes. He's tested the water, the chemistry. He knows it. He's bred over, I think he said, over 140 different types of Corydoras himself. But he also breeds a lot of plecos. And he's written the book. If I don't have a picture of it, but he wrote a book on the L236 Hypancistris. This guy knows his stuff. And it's a great watch. It's an hour and 18 minutes long, well worth every minute and second. And he really starts to get into some really interesting stuff around a minute five and a half. He starts talking about how the L236, and this was something I learned from this video, how the L236 is a wild type hybrid fish. And then he starts talking about all the black and white wormline plecos of the Rio Xingu on how they're really the same fish. Genetically, they're the same fish. And there's been a lot of that speculation. Scientists haven't identified them all and confirmed all of that, but, he's fully believes that that's the case. And I'm sure he's probably right. Watching that video, though, it was kind of nice for me personally, because he talked about breeding plecos, and a lot of the stuff that he talked about is stuff that I'm doing. And it was kind of rewarding, not to pat my own back, but it was just kind of rewarding to know that you're doing the right thing. And when you can get that confirmation from someone at Hans's level, it feels good. I'm not going to lie. It kind of felt good. We differ on one thing, though. He talked about he likes to keep plants in each one of his pleco tanks. Only low light, easy plants is what he keeps, rhizome type plants. And that's what I do in my fish room. Java fern, Anubias, and Bulbitis. That's it. You might find some floating plants. I have some water sprite and some hornwort in a couple of my Corydoras tanks, but in my pleco tanks, it's Java fern and Anubias and Bulbitis. But he feels that even a little bit of plant matter in the tanks kind of help create a balance. And, I'm going to agree to disagree with the amount of water changes that I'm doing on my tanks. I don't know that plants would add any benefit, but I do like having plants in my tanks. That is one thing that we did differ on. But if you have the time, do take it after the stream, not before, not right now. After the stream, go over and watch this Hans-Georg Evers interview. And again, it's Paraíso Pleco. It's been a long time since I took Spanish class, so I'm sure I probably butchered that channel name, but you should be able to find it if you just search Hans-Georg Evers. But all right, what's new? Since the last stream, I've added quite a few fish. I've made a lot of changes in the fish room, and if you've been watching my videos, you've probably seen that, and you already know that. But I'm just going to run down a quick list, and I might jump over to planet catfish just to show what a couple of these fish look like for those that might not know what I'm talking about. But since that last stream, I did add 12 L183s. Prior to picking up the L183s, though, I did pick up 10 L181s. I've since lost one, so I'm down to 9. Good news is I just moved them the other day, and I have 5 females and 4 males, so I can easily create a few different breeding pairs or a couple of reverse trios or standard trios if I want, kind of scatter them around the fish room. But I did pick up L181s as well. I also added 10 Ancistrus Wobbin Musters to my collection. I added 12 L236 RBs to my collection. The L236 is a real special pleco. That's the one that Hans mentioned is perhaps a wild type hybrid. And just going to jump over here so people can see. I picked up 12 of these. I picked up 9 of them from George at Nationwide Aquatics. And George brings in a lot of real good fish. I know where he sources his fish too, so I know who the breeder is of those fish, and it's just top level. You can't go wrong with some of George's stuff. Then I picked up 3 of them from Stephanie at Aquarialife. All just beautiful fish. I was lucky that out of the 9 I got from George, 3 or 4 of them would actually be considered super white, which is, one of the variations like this here, where you have very little black coloration, majority of the body color is white. And those fish generally run for anywhere from $250 to $400 right now is kind of the going price, and depending on size and source. But I was able to add 12 of those, so I'm real excited about that. I did also pick up 4 more L46 zebra plecos that will be added in with the adults. And then I picked up 11 L400s from Dan's Fish. And the L400 is another one of those Ryoshingu Hypancistrus, and really that's the reason why I got it, is simply because they're no longer allowed for export. Those that are in the hobby is what we have to work with, and a lot of it for me is picking species for to keep the species going. My mind just totally went blank there, but species preservation. I want to keep the species going. I want to help breed and spread this species out, because again, what we have is what we have. Now the L400 isn't as flashy and bright and white and as defined as like the L236s or some of the others, maybe like the L401s, etc. And their patterns can really vary quite a bit from, they almost like this one here, this fish here, you look at that fish, then you look at an L174, they look almost identical. This fish is a little bigger fish though. So this is about a 4-inch fish, where the L174 is going to be about a 3-inch fish. But then they can have that dark, black and white wormline pattern as well. So it highly varies. But I did pick up 11 of those from Dan. I also did something that I kind of regret, but I don't, but I do. I removed 7 10-gallon tanks out of the fish room. Those 10-gallon tanks I used for grow out, and it really has cut down on my ability to provide enough space for growing out a bunch of Corydoras this year. My Corydoras groups have been spawning for me, but I've not been picking any eggs because I just don't have any more grow out tanks available, so I kind of kneecapped myself in that sense when I replaced those 7 10-gallon tanks with 2 40-gallon breeders. Now the good news is those 2 40-gallon breeders are full of L134 leopard frog plecos, and they're producing. They're spawning for me. So, good news, bad news. I was down there measuring the other day, and I think I have a solution where I'm going to be able to add back at least 3 10-gallon tanks and maybe a 40-gallon grow-out tank as well. Now, last year, not only did I have those 7 10-gallon tanks, I had the 5 20-gallon grow-outs, a 40-gallon breeder grow-out, but I had 2 additional 40-gallon breeders were being used for grow-outs, and 2 of my 60-gallon breeders were being used for grow-outs last year. So I'm down 7 10-gallon tanks, 2 60 breeders, and 2 40 breeders that were just designated for grow-outs last year. That's a lot of space. That's a lot of fish that I could, space that I could be using to grow out a lot of fish. So that's just not going to be the case this year. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And we're just going to work with what we have and keep moving forward. Now, I have gotten rid of some fish as well. I did get rid of my group of Corridor Sucis. And for those that don't know what those fish look like, I had 10 or 12 wild-caught Corridor Sucis. To my knowledge, these have been bred, the amount of times they've been bred in the United States can be counted on one hand, as far as I know. And if anybody in chat knows otherwise, please correct me, because I'm sure I'm probably wrong by now. There are no breeding reports on Planet Catfish. Breeding hasn't been reported, but I have talked to a couple people that said they have indeed been bred. I really like this fish, but they were wild. I mean, they were wild caught, yes, but they were just wild. I would walk by that tank and they just, boom, they just go off on different directions, slam into the glass, just cause havoc and chaos. So I decided to part ways with them. Yeah, I kind of miss them, but, again, I only have so many tanks. And then I did get rid of my Corydorus axelrodi, which is a real nice lineage 9 catfish. Pretty basic looking, but real nice. Easy to breed, easy to keep, not too demanding at all. They would breed for me constantly. But I did decide to get rid of those. I did get rid of my Corydorus orange venezuelanus as well, simply because they were too prolific for me. Their price points were too low for me to justify raising. I had a hard time. I'll talk about this in a little bit. Shipping, when you're charging $50 to $60 to ship fish, it's hard to justify that when the fish only costs $5, right? So I did get rid of the Corydorus venezuelanus. I also got rid of my adult group of my Scleromystax barbatus. And I do miss these fish. I do miss them. Now, before I got rid of them, before I sold my barbatus, they left a present on the side glass, the side panel of the 40 long they were in, about 45 eggs. I picked them, hatched them, and I have about 40 or 45 youngsters down there, about an inch. Kind of thinking I might keep some. I don't know. We'll see, because I do miss that. They're a really fun fish to keep. And then I also got rid of my Corydorus concolors. So I thought. So I put them into my 75-gallon community tank, if you will. It's out in the rec room by my pool table. And we had a club auction. I thought I bagged them all up. And then a few weeks after the auction, I'm out there. They were the only Corydorus. The Sucis were in there, but I knew that I got all the Sucis out. I sold those in the same auction. I thought I got all the concolors out. A few weeks later, I'm walking by my tank and I see these little spots on the side of the tank, like Corydorus eggs. Holy crap, holy cow, those are Corydorus eggs. I don't have any Corydorus. How is that possible? So upon further inspection, I found a male and I found a female that somehow I missed. They had to have wedged themselves into the big piece of driftwood that I had. And I checked that over. I thought I did, but I thought I got rid of the concolors. I didn't. They spawned. None of the eggs hatched for me, but I do have a male and do have a female. I don't know what I'll do with those. So if anybody has a group of concolors and you want a couple more, I could ship them to you, but it wouldn't be until spring. But let me know. So that's what is gone from the fish room. Now, as far as breeding, I'm going to do something here real quick. I'm going to play a quick video that I took of what I'm breeding in the fish room and just kind of walk through it. These are all easy fish. These are Praecox rainbow fish fry that we're growing out. There's one Duplicarius in there. We do have some Corydorus Schultzi black. As you can see, we have a nice group of about 40, 45. And then this tank here, this is a real special Corydorus. This is, again, a high-end, hard-to-source Corydorus bozemanii. We got about 45. I just pulled another spawn today of about 30 eggs. These are Corydorus Kanakis, a real easy Corydorus to breed. Corydorus Kanaki, and a nice-looking spotted Corydorus. And then these are the Corydorus, or the Scleromystax barbatus. And again, I kind of think I want to keep some of them back. Now, this is my spawn from the L134 pleco, the Picoltia Rio Peru. There's 57 of them in this little fry box here. And I need to move them out. I just don't have any open grow out space for them right now. So I'm trying to figure that out, and I need to figure it out real quick, because not only do we have those L494s, but we also have the L134 spawning. We also have the L397 spawning. There's the big L494 male, big spike. And they're going to get ready to spawn for me probably within the next week. But here's the spawn from the L134s, and we're going to talk about breeding this fish here in a couple minutes. And there's 36, 37 of those that we have. And then after this, I think I show, yeah, these are the 134s. We got to get them moved out of that fry box too here pretty soon. These here are the CW49s. These are the black diamonds. And I do have 10 to 12 of them in this fry box. But you can see their bellies are full of baby brine shrimp. So once you get them to that stage, you're usually home free. Once you get them up to that stage and they start filling their gut with baby brine shrimp. But it's always special. Always feels really good to get spawns out of the CW49s for sure. So, but that is, oh, and then, yeah, more Praecox rainbow fish, daisy blue rice fish. And I'm not sure why I'm doing that. I think it's probably just to have some fish to sell at club auctions and a couple of swaps that I attend. But anyways, that's what we have going on with breeding here. Let me close that video out real quick. And then we're going to talk about breeding the L134. Now, again, I'm going to reiterate that I am not an expert. I am a hobbyist, okay? But I do have experience with this particular fish. Right now, I have 5 groups of L134s. The last few years, I've been averaging 150 to 200 fry each year. But we've had, and I'd like to increase that. I'd like to get up to at least 300 or more by this time next year. I do have some experience with them. So now I want to talk about breeding this fish. And what I'm going to tell you comes from my experience. It's all based on my experience with my fish in my fish room. Every group of fish is different. Every fish is different, let alone every group. So what works for me may not work for you. You might have tried that and it didn't work for you, but it works for me. And that's what I'm going to talk about, what's worked for me. And a lot of what I'm going to share can actually be applied towards not just the L134, but a whole bunch of other species. And, I don't do a lot of different things for the different species that I'm working with right now. And I'll show you the list here in a little bit of how many plecos we're actually working with. When I say we, me and my brother, we kind of work together as partners, if you will. We both have about 30, 31, 32 fish tanks. But I think I added it up. We have 25 or 26 species of plecos that we're working with right now. But what I'm going to tell you with the 134 can be used for quite a few species. And again, I don't do a lot of things different, but we'll talk about that too. Let's see. Just give me 1 second. I need to pull up my YouTube channel and my videos. And we're going to switch screens here. I did put out a video not too long ago about setting up a pleco tank. And if you haven't watched that, after this stream, maybe go ahead and watch it. Or if one of the mods, if Bob, I don't know if Pam joined or not, go ahead and drop a link. But otherwise, just go to my YouTube channel, TM Aquatics, after the stream and watch that. And that'll talk about basic tank setup and how I set tanks up here in my fish room and what I use. And a lot of what I do here, again, was confirmed by Hans Evers and what he does and how he sets his tanks up. So I know I'm on the right track of how I'm setting these tanks up and what I'm doing. It's working, we're getting results, and when that's confirmed by an expert, you're doing it right. Only difference, he keeps plants, I don't. I do have plants in some of my pleco tanks. I don't have plants in all of them. I'm trying to get away from plants. I'm I only have plants and tanks with dithers, and I'm trying to get away from dither fish with plecos. Okay, so breeding the L134 pleco. What's the best size tank? How many fish should I keep? Should I keep colonies? Should I breed in trios, reverse trios? What's the best? There is no perfect answer to that. I'm a colony breeder. I like to breed in colonies. I like to breed in I found that groups of 6 to 10 work good for me. A lot of my younger groups of fish that I have, like the 471s, the 174s, I've got 15 plus of those fish in those tanks. They won't stay that way. As they start to mature, sexually mature, I'll be able to take out and hand select which ones I'm going to use for breeding stock and then get rid of the rest. But, 6 to 10 works great. I like the 40 breeder. Plenty of room, plenty of water volume for 6 to 10 L134 plecos, plenty of space. It's got nice depth, so they have a lot of floor space, which I think is important for the fish. It's not so long like my 60 breeders, where it's so long you might have a little bit of detritus collecting here and there. It's just shorter. It keeps things on the bottom a little more stirred up, a little more moved around, if you will, and pulled into the filters, and they just stay a little cleaner than my 60 breeders do. I like the 40 breeders. And again, 6 to 10 fish is what works for me. With that said, I know somebody who breeds a lot more plecos than I do down in Des Moines, and he swears by reverse trios. I know somebody else down in Iowa that breeds more plecos than I do, and he swears by smaller groups or reverse trios. I know somebody in Wisconsin that breeds more plecos than I do, and he likes to colony breed. So I think that there's pros and cons on both. And I think it comes down to what you like more. If I was simply after productivity, trying to churn out as many plecos as possible, I would do smaller groups, 20-gallon tanks or 15-gallon tanks with reverse trios in them all day long, every day, and have 100 tanks. I don't want to maintain that many separate systems. That's just me. I also like looking at bigger tanks. That's a personal preference of mine. So that's what I do here, and it's worked for me. And again, reverse trios and smaller tanks works for someone else. I guess it all depends on what is your goal. Now, before you're going to be successful with the L134 or anybody else, I think this is the right side. Yeah. There's some key fundamentals that you really have to understand. You have to understand the fish's environment, the biotope. Where do they come from? What's their water chemistry like? Is it acidic water? Do they come from a higher pH? What are the temperatures? What is the TDS? What is the conductivity? It's helpful to understand the basics of where these fish come from so you can more closely replicate that in your tank or for your fish. Do they like high flow? Do they like low flow? And then the diet. Okay. As far as where I get my information from, and again, I'm going to switch over to this screen here. I just had this conversation with one of the channel members in an email exchange, and he was asking where I get my information from. The best source of information can be found. There's 3 places that I like to go for information on plecos. Plecos. Hello. I like to go to Planet Catfish, but I don't look at the species data right here. I'm just going to make this statement. Not everything you see on this page of Planet Catfish is accurate. Okay? For example, L264 Sultan Pleco. Whoops. Let's go look at the Sultan Pleco data real quick. I can key in the right number there. Let's look at the Sultan Pleco. Size 3.9 inches. I bought a fully grown 7-inch male from Freshwater Exotics, wild caught L264. I didn't know they got that big. According to Planet Catfish, I thought I was going to get a 4-inch fish. I asked Jamie and Christine from Freshwater, give me the biggest, gnarliest L264 male you can find in your group and bring them to Cataclysm a couple years ago. Because I had a bunch of females. And they brought this behemoth monster. So I'm like, I didn't know they get that big. And their response, don't believe everything you see on Planet Catfish. But what I do like about Planet Catfish and where the real value, and I mentioned this in the first stream, is the breeding reports. You want to go to the breeding reports and start reading what people have documented when they submitted their breeding reports on whatever species. That's going to give you a lot of really valuable information. Then you can go over to lauracaridae.info. Now, they also have the species. You can go and look at their data sheets on all the different species, and you can pull up whatever species it is you want to work with. And you can see all, they don't put a ton in there, but they put some, see where they're from and, what they say about it. But, you can go over to this pH map. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this. And I don't know, I don't use this as, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. I use this in combination with the information that I get off Planet Catfish. Because I don't know at what time of the year these things were necessarily, when these samples were done, and, was it wet season, dry season, were there other things that went into, the water systems? But if you go to this map, this pH map, you see all these little dots, and you can look at the different river systems. Here we have the Tapajos over here. We have the Rio Negro over here. And then we'll look at everybody's favorite, the Xingu, over here. And, here's the Belamonte Dam is down here, and this is where the zebras come from. But you can click on these little dots, and you can start to gather some additional information to help you better understand what the fish needs are. Water temp, 31.8 C. Do the conversion. I don't know what the conversion is, but I'm guessing it's 30 or 85, 86 degrees. pH, 7.8, a little bit higher. You go over to the Rio Negro, where the L183s come from and the L136s, and you start looking at some of these numbers. pH 4.19. So with that being said, it's helpful to understand some of the water chemistry that these fish come from. The 134 comes out of the Tapajos. Okay, 99% of the L134s in the hobby come out of the Tapajos. Some come out of the Rio Jananskin. I forget the name or how to pronounce it. But most of the fish out of the Tapajos, or the 134s in the hobby, come out of the Tapajos. Okay. And you start looking at some of the data for the Tapajos, 6.8 pH. I keep my pH around 7.0, 7.2. And then you start looking at breeding reports and getting temperatures. You know what? 80 degrees, 78 to 82 is kind of the sweet spot for the 134s. That's what I do. I keep my temperature at about 81 degrees. I have heater controllers. Sometimes once the heater controller reaches 81 degrees, it'll stop. It's only at 81 for a brief period. Then as soon as that heater controller kicks off, temperature starts to cool. Cools down to 79, then it starts heating. So it's in that 79 to 81. Okay. You have to understand what the basic needs are of the fish. So TDS, the TDS that I shoot for in my fish room with 134s, based on everything that I know about the 134, based on what I find at lauracaridae.info, what I find on Planet Catfish. The other source that I like to get information from is other fish keepers, other people that have been successful with said fish. And again, you run into a lot of those with Cataclysm. So based on that, I keep my L134s at 81 degrees. I keep my TDS at 150. Anytime the TDS falls under 100, I've not had a lot of success with any eggs or any spawns hatching. I spoke to somebody and they said that once the TDS goes below a certain point, those eggs can literally melt. In fact, I've seen that too with my L397s. Recently, I had a spawn and those eggs just melted. I thought maybe the male ate them. Then I took out my TDS pen and I checked and my TDS had fallen to 70, which is too low. It's just too low. So those eggs can melt. Now, I'm not a scientist. I don't claim to be. I don't know what it is. If there's just not enough minerals in there for those eggs to calcify and harden to protect the embryo, I don't know what it is. I suspect that could be it. But anytime the TDS falls too low, you're just not going to have good success. So that's what I do is 81 degrees, TDS 150. Now, as far as foods go, Some of the foods that I like to feed my L134s, my staples. I like to feed good food, but my staples are those two right in the middle here. Extreme big fella pellets, the fish love them. Pleco ceramics, they're pleco tabs. I use those two as my staples. Two other foods that are pretty decent and more budget friendly from your fish stuff, the green supreme and the cichlid supreme. Good food. They're good budget food, but they do have good ingredients, and their protein and their fat levels are spot on. But there are better foods, but those are still, for the money, those are some good foods. So you might want to check those out. But those two in the middle, big fella from Extreme and the pleco tabs, those are my go-tos. Now, in addition to that, they're getting other things. They're getting Rapashi. I'm feeding them Rapashi, Soylent Green. I'm feeding them Bottom Scratcher, and I'm mixing the two up. And then they also get frozen bloodworms from time to time. And that's about it. That's about all I do. Now, so we talked a little bit about the TDS, the foods, talked about the water parameters, the temps. With that being said, try different cave sizes. In that video, I talk about my favorite cave size, which is the 1.5-inch D cave from plecocaves.com. That particular cave, it's my favorite for the L134s because that's the cave that my 134s spawn in 99% of the time. I don't know what it is, but they like that. At the end of the day, if you've tried all this and it's not working, don't be afraid to change it up. Don't be afraid to try something different. And what I mean by that is take out the decorations, move them around. I wouldn't add any new fish or take any out, but maybe rearrange the caves. Sometimes that's all it takes, and those fish will go for you, okay? Once the fish are trapped, leave them alone, okay? Just leave them alone. Sometimes the trapping can last just a few hours. Sometimes it can last a few days. Once they start trapping, leave them alone. Don't sit and shine a torch in their eye every second of the day because you're so excited to see that you have a trapping, okay? Sometimes the females can get injured. In fact, they can get fatally injured in a bad trap. If you're going to shine the light in there, you could spook the male. It could result in some injury with the female. I don't want to do that. I want to do that as least as possible. But do check the female out when she comes out of that cave. Know which female went in, so you know which female to check out when she comes out. Just look for injuries, because they can get pretty banged up in those trappings, okay? Let's see. Once they spawn, let the male pleco do the work. A lot of people like to dump the eggs and tumble the eggs. Unless you're extremely experienced tumbling the eggs, let the male do the work. I've never seen an egg tumbler work as good as a good male pleco. So let the male do the work. Plus, it's a lot easier on you. I've tried tumbling many times. I've not had really good results with that. Inevitably, one's going to go bad. And once you have this big egg ball in the tumbler and you have a bad egg, now you got to pull the egg tumbler out. Now you got to play around with those eggs, get the bad egg out. Chances are you've already contaminated another one, or that egg's contaminated another one, and it can spread through the whole thing. And it's just not good. So I like to just let the male do the work. I have much better results. The L134 eggs take 7 days to hatch. Okay, so once they spawn, you're going to check back in a week, and those eggs are now going to be little wigglers. Okay, takes about 7 to 9 days for them to fully absorb their egg yolk. Some people like to pull the freshly hatched wrigglers out of the cave because they can't grip the side of the cave real well, and it's much easier to pour them out. I like to wait, and this is just a personal choice, but I like to wait until that yolk sac is more absorbed so that they aren't as susceptible to being injured by any odontodes on the male or anything like that. They're just not as fragile. So I like to wait until the yolk sac's almost fully absorbed. Having troubles talking tonight. Good grief. So it's important, though, to kind of watch as those yolk sacs start to disappear, because you don't want to wait too long. If you wait too long, those fry will start venturing out. And if they get out in your tank and you have some dither fish, they become a pretty easy snack. I'm just going to say that. So I like to pull mine out, you know, before they completely absorb the yolk sac, but right at that point where they're just about ready to come out, but not yet. So again, that's what I like to do. Now, the fry, I like to move them into, and hold up one second, because it is getting close to 8 o'clock, which was the time I was going to stop, so that everybody could bounce over to Dan's Fish. I'm not even going to get to half my agenda. I might have to do another stream next week just to get caught up. For those that want to bounce and want to go over to Dan's Fish, I understand. Bob, if you have to go, I understand. I do want to finish up the discussion on the L134s before I end this stream. I do want to do at least that. But I'm not going to be able to get into the shipping that I wanted to talk about, and I'm not going to have time for Q&A, unfortunately. But I'm just going to keep going here and at least finish up the 134. If there's still a bunch of people in chat, then I will continue. But if it falls down to like 2 people, I might just end it. We'll see. But if you want to go over to Dan's, I certainly understand. And I'll try to get over there as soon as I can. All right. The eggs have hatched. It's 7 to 9 days. You want to pull the eggs. Okay. This one is kind of cool. What we're going to see here. If I can get my mouse to jump over to screen 2. There we go. All right. I like to take those fry and I like to put them into a Zis breeder box. Please don't ever put plecos in one of these breeder boxes. And I say that not because I'm any type of expert. I say it because, and I'm almost embarrassed to say, but I have killed a couple of spawns of plecos by using these breeder boxes. The intake tubes, the end of the intake tubes can get clogged. And if it gets clogged, there's not going to be any water flow. There's not going to be any oxygenation. And if you have a little fry box full of 30 L134s, guess what? Chances are they're not going to be there in the morning. They're going to be stinky and rotty and belly up and dead. And again, I base that, embarrassingly, I base that on personal experience. And yes, I have killed a couple of batches of plecos. So I do not use these for plecos. I still use them for Corydoras, but I would never put a big spawn of plecos in these ever again. I use a breeder box that is sold by Plecos Hotels and Accessories. Small business, veteran-owned. I buy a lot of stuff from him, including my Ebo Aquaristick food. I'll talk about this particular food here in just a second. There's 3 different styles of Zis breeder boxes, and this is important. This is important. There are 3 different styles. The only one that you want to use for baby plecos is the one on the left here, the BL2. You don't want to use the BL3. You don't want to use the GL1. And here's why. The 2, 3, and 1 in the name represents the number of panels of the breeder box that are screens. Those screens allow water flow through the breeder box, which is a great concept. I should also note these are internal breeder boxes. So these are inside the tank. Same temperature as the main body of water. They have screens on them, so even if the air that you hook up to this cuts out or clogs or whatever, you're still going to get water flow through there. They're bulletproof. But you only want the BL2. The BL3 has screens on the sides and the bottom. The GL1 has a screen on the bottom. Those don't work for baby plecos because you're putting small foods in there for the plecos to eat, and that food falls through. Okay? They also spend most of the time on the bottom. And if you have, like, in one of my tanks with my 494s, I got this big male angelfish, and he keeps coming up and trying to bang through that plastic bottom to eat some little L494s. But the BL2 works perfect. The other reason I like that is because when you do a water change, you can drop the level of the tank lower than what that breeder box is, and there's still about 1 inch of water that will stay in that breeder box because of the solid bottom. So those are the reasons why I like to use those. The BL2, the only one I like to use. And he's got a video here. with some super whites and looks like some L306s in there. But see what I mean? They're scooting around the bottom. You got a lot of flow through there. I should point this out, though. I'm going to stop this and point this out. Actually, I'm sitting there pointing to the screen. Can't see that. Let's see. Can you see the cursor? Yeah, you can see the cursor. So you see these screens? They can get clogged up. Just take a toothbrush. Just take an old toothbrush, go down there and rub it against the inside of the fry box, and most of that stuff will jettison out. Some will stay in the fry box, but you got to keep those screens clean so that the water movement can continue to move through that fry box, okay? But you want to get the BL2 solid bottom, sides, screens on the side, water flow. These plecos work, or these breeder boxes work fantastic for plecos. All right, so you move them into a fry box. There's some things you want to have in that fry box. Whether it's an L134, an L260, an L397, an L494, put some catappa leaves in there. Some type of botanical. I like catappa leaves. As soon as I get a spawn, I get a breeder box going. I throw a couple of catappa leaves in there. By the time those eggs have hatched and those pleco fry are ready to be moved into that breeder box, there's going to be a nice biofilm on those catappa leaves. Now, again, I'm not an expert. This would be something that maybe Rebecca Bentley would be able to answer a lot more intelligently than me. But it's rumored that the biofilm on those catappa leaves is like the first food for these little baby plecos, and it helps jumpstart their digestive system. A few people told me the same thing at Cataclysm about 4 years ago, and I've never looked into it any further, but I do that and I have success. And I'm going to continue to do that. I always put in a little piece of driftwood as well, especially for the Pinaculus, the 397s. L306s, you'd want to do the same. Put a little piece of wood in there for them to sit and rasp on. And I found that all plecos, whether they're high Panspercoltias, Ancestris, or Pinax, they all like to rasp on wood. So you have the BL2 fry box in there. You're moving the fry in. You have a couple catappa leaves. Okay. What are we going to feed them? What's the first thing that we want to feed these little plecos? Well, they're going to get that biofilm off the catappa leaf, but what I use on my L134s are these two foods right here. Ebo Aquaristic Youngster Grow Paste and the Spirulina Paste. They have almost like a Play-Doh, kind of a combination between Play-Doh and clay consistency. It's a pliable Play-Doh type thing. Take it out, roll up a little ball. I like to squish it and flatten it like the size of a nickel or a quarter. How much you put in, it depends on how many plecos you're feeding. Throw that into the fry box. What this does is it starts to dissolve and create a biofilm around that piece that you dropped in. And those little baby plecos can go in and just start sucking up that biofilm. And the food works fantastic. So that's what I always start out with, is the youngster paste, the spirulina, and the youngster grow paste. Works wonderful. You could try some micro worms. You could try things like golden pearls. What I've been trying or using with these L494s and the 134s that I have down in the fish room right now are it's made by Cobalt Aquatics, Smartemia. Kind of imitates live baby brine shrimp. But you have to make sure when you feed that you put your fingers under the water and let it absorb some water so it sinks down to the bottom. Otherwise, it's going to float on the surface. A lot of it gets pushed out through the screens on these fry boxes. A lot's going to end up going through the screens either way. But enough of it gets down to the bottom, and then those little plecos just go around. They just scoop up that Smartemia. It's expensive food. I just bought a new bottle or jar that's yay round and yay high, and it was like $60. It's crazy. But I've been feeding that to these little baby plecos here recently, and it's been working out really well. I also like to feed baby brine shrimp, and I know not everybody's a fan of feeding baby brine shrimp. You need to be very careful when you feed baby brine shrimp that you are just getting out the little live baby brine shrimp and you're not dropping in a bunch of unhatched eggs. Because those can cause some issues for these little baby plecos. But you want to, baby brine shrimp, take out a little bit. Again, use whatever you pipe at, whatever, put it towards the bottom of that fry box, just gently squeeze it. So most of the baby brine shrimp stays on the bottom, and these things just absolutely inhale that food. And then let's see, once they get a little bit bigger, extreme nano. In fact, I do have a picture of this. This might help out. Extreme nano, they do like that. Here's that cobalt smartemia stuff. And actually, this is my old one. The new container is quite a bit bigger than that. And then New Life Spectrum Growth. I use all these, and they all work out fantastic. So, but that's what I feed them. Once they reach that size, 1 inch, yeah, you can start dropping that food in there, and you'll have no problem. Now, if you do put too much in, it's important. Good breeder box hygiene is extremely important. Keep the breeder box as clean as possible. Get in there with a little bit of air tubing and siphon out any uneaten food in the morning or whatever. When you see detritus or poo or areas start to pile up, get that out of there. Just clean it up and get it out of there. And your fish, your fry are going to stay a lot healthier. So with that being said, that kind of wraps up my spiel on the L134 and what I do here in my fish room. And again, I've been fairly successful with this fish. Not to toot my own horn, I'm sure there's people that are breeding 10 times what I'm breeding here. But it's worked well for me, and we're pretty successful with growing this particular fish out once we have a good spawn. But that's it on the 134s. Now I'm going to ask, because we still have 60 people in chat. We lost a few over to Dan's fish. If anybody wants to hear my little spiel on shipping, I would be happy to continue and talk about shipping. Otherwise, I can cut it right here, and we can circle back and maybe pick this up and end next week. But I do want to talk about shipping fish. And when I say shipping fish, I'm not talking about how to bag them and how to box them. I'm talking about how to engage with, FedEx, UPS, USPS, more so for me, UPS. How to engage with UPS, and some free shipping software that you can use to process those labels, track the shipments, send email alerts out to your customers, how you can get a much better rate than what you would if you just went to ups.com and set up an account. There's a few different platforms that I've used, two specifically that I was going to talk about, and what I like about one over the other. So, okay, continue. Yes, please. Yes, please. Next week it is. Let's see. I need to get mine to breed. Yeah, you do, Leo. Get yours to breed, buddy. I know you're close. Okay, so I have a few people that want to continue with shipping. Okay, so let's talk about this. All right, let me just pull up a couple screens here. Now, this is one subject that I can talk about as an expert, because I've been in global supply chain for over 30 years. This is what I do for a living. I manage $300 to $400 million of transportation spend for a bunch of big companies, and I move product for them globally. I know UPS and FedEx extremely well, and I have very intimate relationships with both organizations. I know them inside and out, as well as a whole bunch of other carriers in the country and worldwide for that matter. So I can speak as an expert with this subject. That's about the only one that I'm qualified to speak as an expert about. Okay, so actually, let me go back here. All right, before we talk about shipping, and before I really get into the websites, about the shipping websites and the different platforms that you can use, it's important to understand how your price is calculated in the small package world. Small package, small parcel is what the industry calls it. There are four things really that contribute to how much your cost is going to be: package weight, package size, the service type used, and how far it's going to travel. Those are the four things really. Now, this is the 10,000 foot view of this. We're not going to get too deep in the weeds because there are other things that can change the cost. Things like residential delivery, signature required, dry ice, all of that. So there's a whole bunch of accessorials. And we're not going to talk about those. We're talking about the basics. Weight, size, distance, and service type used. Now, why are the weight and the size important? Why do they care? Why do they care if I ship a 1 pound package this big or the size of a refrigerator? 1 pound is 1 pound. Why does it matter? This freight moves on trucks. It moves on airplanes. They're both limited by 2 things. With trucks, they're limited by axle weight and capacity, space inside the tractor trailer. The airplanes are limited by space inside the aircraft, the Airbus or 767 or whatever type aircraft. They're also limited by takeoff weight. Okay, so there's some limitations with each mode of transportation. We're not including rail on this. I'm well aware that UPS moves a lot of stuff on the rail. They would be limited by space as well. We're 10,000 foot view. Okay, airplanes, space and takeoff weight, trucks, axle weight, and space. The more space you consume within that plane, or the more space you consume within that truck, you have to pay for that. You have to pay for that. It wasn't always this way. I'll talk about that in just a second. The more weight you take up, the more that you contribute towards that takeoff weight or that axle weight, you're going to pay for that. You have to pay for it. You know, at the end of the day, really, it doesn't cost any more to move a 5 pound package than it does a 50 pound package. It really doesn't. But you're consuming more of that limited commodity of axle weight, takeoff weight, and then the space. You're taking up more space. Okay. Service type. I'll talk about the size here in just a second. The service type. Almost all overnight packages are going to be on an aircraft. It's not true in every state, in every case. If I'm shipping something from Minneapolis to St. Paul overnight, UPS is going to put that on a plane, fly it down to Louisville, and then fly it back up here. They're just going to keep it in the market. So it's probably never going to see a plane. But they're still going to charge me as though it does. And I get it. That's fine. But most overnight freight touches a plane. Some 2-day stuff touches a plane. Ground packages never touch a plane. Why is that important? Well, it costs a lot more to operate and fly packages than it does to move them over the surface or over the road. So overnight packages, they're going on planes. Their costs are up here. 2-day packages, they may go on a plane. They may also be moved, or a portion of their transportation or their line haul might be moved over the surface in case most of them are. So I might ship a 2-day package from here to Georgia. UPS is going to truck it from here to Louisville and then fly it from Louisville to Georgia. Or they might have enough time to move it through their network on the surface. Just depends on origin and destination. So 2-day prices are kind of in between, and then ground packages are just that, ground. They move on the ground. So their costs are always the lowest. So you got the highest, the middle, and then the lowest. I only ship overnight, by the way. I only ship overnight. It's better for the fish. Now, I talked about space being one of those limited commodities on the trucks and the planes. We can thank Amazon for you now having to pay more for these big boxes. When I first got into the industry, they just charged based on weight. It was just weight. How much weight? This is for the air. I'm talking about FedEx Priority Overnight. UPS Red Service was the service that they called it. UPS Red Priority Overnight for FedEx. They just, how much did it weigh? And then what service type? Here's your charge. There was one rate column, and it was based on weight. Now you have all these different zones for air, just like you did with ground. Ground was always zone-based. Now air is zone-based. You have all these different zones. But I should back up before I talk about that. It used to be based just solely on weight. It's now based on not just the weight, but the greater of the actual weight, or what the industry calls dimensional weight. And what's dimensional weight? The dimensional weight is, there's a calculation that the industry uses that says a box of this size averages this much weight. And if the actual weight is lower, you're going to pay that dimensional weight. If the actual weight is higher than that calculation, you're going to pay the higher actual weight. That formula is length times width times height in inches divided by 139. So you're taking the length of the box, the height, and the width in inches, dividing those up, length times width times height, divided by 139 for FedEx and UPS. That will tell you what your dim weight is. That'll tell you what your dimensional weight is. The post office, they use I don't want to say an outdated, but they use the 166 dim divisor, which the higher the dim divisor, the lower the dim weight becomes. But USPS, the post office, uses a 166 dim divisor. UPS and FedEx used to use that too up until a few years ago. Then they changed it. Everything was going fine in the overnight business until Amazon. And Amazon really forced the carriers to change and implement dimensional weight pricing. So thank you, Bezos. And the reason they had to do that is just the sheer volume, but the way that Amazon was packaging their packages. If you ever bought a toothbrush from Amazon and it came in this big box that would fit, a microwave, they didn't know how to pack, and they still don't know how to pack, but they're getting better. They started consuming all this space. So UPS, FedEx, their trucks were bulking out, their planes were bulking out. They were not getting the money, the revenue that they would typically get because their costs were skyrocketing. So the industry had to make a quick change, and that's when they adopted the dimensional weight. So why is this important? If you understand what goes into the cost or how the cost is calculated, you can take steps to reduce that cost, especially if you only ship overnight like me. I made the decision 2 or 3 years ago to only ship overnight. And I know Dan at Dan's Fish has now done that. And some others only offer overnight shipping too. And I do it for a few reasons. Number one, it's easier on the fish. It's less stressful on the fish. This year I had no DOAs, not a single DOA. I didn't ship a ton, but I think I had 54 shipments and I didn't have a single loss. It's just easier on the fish. It is more expensive and it's harder to justify that overnight. I get it. I understand. But knowing what goes into the cost, you can do things to minimize that as much as possible so that it makes it an easier decision for your customer to accept your shipping charges. Ship with less water. And I'm going to go back. Dan's has this figured out. They have it dialed in real well. If you've never bought from Dan's Fish, go to Dan's Fish, order some fish just to see how he ships. He ships in these heat seal little bags with like a thimble full of water, but it works. And I'm always amazed at how many fish he can fit in these little tiny bags. But Dan has it figured out. He knows how this works, and he's been able to reduce his shipping costs and still ship more fish than most other people. Me personally, I know how it works, but I still ship using too much water, too big of bags, and too big of packaging. I know that, and I could reduce that. So I think it's important to understand how the price is calculated, just so you know how you can maybe manipulate and control that a little bit. It's going to help you sell more fish and use a better service. Use an overnight service and not charge an arm and a leg. Okay. All right. I do want to point something out, though. However, technically, if you want to ship live animals through FedEx, you have to have your account verified through their live animal desk. You have to fill out some paperwork and you have to get approval. Otherwise, technically, you're not supposed to ship live animals. Now, I don't know if their customer service agents, when you go to drop off a package at one of their service centers, I don't know if they have a way to see that that account is flagged. I'm sure they do. But UPS, you don't need any special certification or approval. And that's not why I use UPS. There's other reasons that I'm not going to get into. But there are some things you need to know when you ship UPS. Okay, and whoops, I'm not on that screen. I thought I had switched this the monitor over to the screen. Okay, so let's look at this real quick because there's a couple things I want to point out. All right, right here. Live animals will only be accepted for transportation when shipped by any UPS service that guarantees delivery next day. So technically, you're only supposed to use overnight service when shipping with UPS, okay? And there's one other real important thing here that I want to point out. Let's see. Let's scroll down here. Live animals accepted: amphibians, crustaceans, fish. Okay, here we go. All fish, insects, reptiles, lizards, and some things. And here's some things that are not accepted by UPS. In the event you ship any of these prohibited items with UPS, they find out about it, they're going to stop that shipment. So just a word of caution, be careful when you ship through UPS that you stick to accepted animals. Now, there's something up here. Yeah, here we go. All right. Live animals are considered a perishable item, non-refundable. In the event that that shipment arrives late and the fish are dead, technically, it's considered a perishable item, and oh well. You don't get to file a claim. You're not going to be reimbursed. Now, depending on how creative you might get with what your description is of said item, I don't know, maybe you can get a bad rep and they'll approve a claim, but technically you're not going to get your money back. So just want to make that point. So there's two websites that I want to talk about real quick, where you can go to, and let's see, I got to move this up. There's two websites that you can use, that I've used to ship fish through UPS. Shippo, which is www.goshippo, no, just HTTPS, goshippo.com. And then there's PirateShip, pirateship.com, www.pirateship.com. Both of them are very similar. They're both going to allow you to ship your shipments, process a label so it comes out on a 4x6, either a label. You can get a thermal label printer on Amazon, or you can just print on 8.5 by 11 paper and just cut it like I do. And actually, I use label stock now, but you can process shipments. You can track shipments. Both will let you send email alerts to your customers, notifying them that the package is on the way. Here's your tracking number, yada, yada, yada. Key differences, though, between Shippo and PirateShip. With GoShippo, you have to set up a UPS account number through UPS, and then you're linking that account number to GoShippo. GoShippo passes on their negotiated discounts to you that then gets billed to your UPS account number. You will get a bill either electronically or through the mail from UPS whenever your billing cycle is. Okay? It's a big difference from what we're going to talk about with PirateShip. The positive of doing it this way and using GoShippo is because you're using your own account number. If that package is late and it's not through one of their service level embargo periods like it is right now, during certain times of the year, they will freeze their money back guarantees just because volumes surge in what we call peak season. But otherwise, outside of peak season, if that shipment is late, you can request a money back if the shipment was delayed, through controllable through, what's the right word? If they were delayed outside of acts of God, okay? So, driver was just late, driver decided to take a break, shipment got missorted, whatever. Things that are controllable by UPS, you can get your money back. So if you have your own account number and you're using GoShippo and the package is late, you go onto your UPS account number. You need to log in to ups.com. You could request a money back, and chances are it'll be approved and you didn't pay anything for that shipment. Great. The downside to using GoShippo and having your own account number is now you have two places you have to go. And those UPS invoices, they come again at your billing cycle, and if you forget about it, you don't see it. you get charged interest if you don't make your payment. Okay. And the carriers are net 15, by the way. So, all right. Pirate Ship. Pirate Ship is different. And this is the one that I started to use. Pirate Ship, you don't need an account number. Anybody can go to Pirate Ship, create an account, start shipping UPS with a heavily discounted rate. And the discounts on both platforms are nearly identical. If not identical, they're nearly identical. And they're pretty significant. You can go to Pirate Ship right now, start shipping. By creating an account, start shipping UPS. Okay, I'm going to shut my screen. I don't want you to see my login credentials, so I'm going to shut this monitor off while I log into Shippo here. We'll just take a quick look at this. All right, I'm in Go Shippo. I don't really want to show, I can't really show you the ship tab where it has your address, origin address. And that's where you'd put in destination address, package dimensions for dimensional, capture the dimensions. And you don't want to lie on that. If you lie on that, you're going to receive a big hefty surcharge and a big slap on the wrist. So make sure you enter accurate dimensions. Don't think you're pulling one over on UPS and FedEx by, maybe I'll just shave an inch off this or that. Those packages are going through their sort centers, and they have laser scanners that are capturing the dimensions of those packages. They get captured multiple times in their sort center. Then they get cross-checked with one another, and that's how they determine what the true size was. So if you think you're going to pull one over on these big shipping companies, don't. All it's going to do is cause you an extra surcharge and another invoice that you didn't want to have. So, on the shipping page, you're going to enter your customer's address, dimensions, weight, and you're going to be able to choose from a whole host of rates. I'm going to turn my monitor off again real quick and just see what this looks. I don't want to share any proprietary information or personal information. Okay, I have to do it this way. So you're putting in the ship to information, okay? Real simple, real easy. Turn that off again real quick because my address shows up. And I know a lot of you have probably bought fish from me and you already know what my address is, but let's see if, okay. We're past that now. All right. And then you're going to be entering here, you're going to be putting in the length, width, and the height, and the weight in pounds. And then you scroll down and you get this get rates. It's going to come back and it's probably going to automatically choose the lowest cost option for you. Post office, UPS ground, whatever. If you drill down on that, it's going to open up a whole host. All right, so let me just do this real quick. I'm going to shut this monitor off. I'm going to create a dummy shipment here real quick, just so you can see this. That's kind of nice. All right, and we're just going to ship like a 12 by 9 by 6 package that weighs about 5 pounds. And let me see if we can put this back up so everybody can see it. Okay, I need to scroll up before I can throw it back up. Okay, so here it's selected UPS ground as the first option. And if you wanted to select this, just click on this, scroll down, create label. But then you scroll down, you start seeing all your other options, okay? But again, heavily discounted. I mean, this is real. For this 5-pound package that's 12 by 9 by 6, UPS would have charged 116 plus fuel surcharge. That's their rate. Here it's $45.07. So it's a pretty nice discount, right? Click on buy label. It'll give you the option to send an email alert out to the customer. They get an email saying your package is on its way with UPS, yada, yada, yada. Here's the tracking number, etc. Real nice platform. Here's the difference, though, between Pirate Ship and the difference that I like. I got to turn this off for a second. I got to delete that test label. All right. With Pirate Ship, you don't need an account number. You just become one of their customers and you get to use their platform and their UPS account to ship. You have to pay for the shipping charges up front. So when you create that label, your payment type that you enter in the system, your credit card, that's going to be charged instantly. Unlike Shippo, where you're billing your UPS account number, when you create the label, they're going to send that information over to UPS, then UPS is going to invoice you, then you're going to have to pay when that invoice arrives. So ship now, pay later, whatever. You don't have an account number, you pay up front with Pirate Ship. I like that because I don't want to worry about two different websites. I don't want to worry about getting charges later. I just want to pay as I go. Okay, just works for me. The downside is because you're not using your UPS account number, if that shipment is late, there's no way for you to get your money back. Part of the negotiation that Pirate Ship has with UPS and FedEx is, in exchange for these rates and these discounts, they're not gonna, they waive the money back guarantee. Okay, so that's a big difference. But what I like about Pirate Ship is the fact that they have a reporting page. GoShippo does as well, but GoShippo doesn't capture this information. GoShippo, their analytics only captures the per label fee that they charge. There's like a 5 cent per label fee that they are charging you when you ship. So every time you ship, you're getting a little tiny fee. That's the only thing that they keep track of. You can't track where your shipments are going, what your average cost is. You can, but you'd have to then go into your UPS account and use their reporting features. And again, I don't want to go to two places. And the UPS websites are not, FedEx especially, is not always as user-friendly as they should be. This here with GoShip or Pirate Ship, real easy. Come to this report tab, and it tells me what my average cost was to ship for the past year. Shows my shipping volume or my shipping pattern. I only ship when heat packs aren't necessary. I only use overnight. I had 54 shipments this last year. My average cost was $52.29. This average cost, just be careful, this average cost does not include things like the $4 that you spent on the styrofoam liner, the $2 that you spent on the box, bags, fish labels to go on the outside of the box saying live fish, tape, all the other things that go into the cost of shipping, the real cost, the total landed cost. This only talks about the transportation cost, but it's helpful because it allows you on platforms like GetGills, it allows you to have, GetGills kind of requires you to put an average cost out there, put your shipping cost out there up front. Well, how do I know what to charge? Well, with this tool here, you kind of know about where you need to be. Now, it's true that some of my shipments cost a lot less. If I'm here in Minnesota, I did have a couple shipments go to Minnesota. Those shipping costs come out much lower than those going out to California that were much greater. But the average came out to $52.29 for this past year. It also has this down here, top states that you ship to. And I think this is real nice. Kind of shows you where you're going. And 70% of the population lives east of the road, the road bump. They call it, what do they call it? The bump in the road, whatever. The speed bump, I'm sorry. Mine's not working tonight. 70% of the population is east of the road bump, the Rocky Mountains. Big population out on the West Coast, of course, but 70% lives east of the Rockies. And that's typically where you're going to see the majority of your shipments end up. For those that are east of the Rockies, your shipping costs, let's say you're like in Kentucky here, kind of right in the middle of, the population, your average shipping zone might be like zone 4. Your costs are going to be much lower than maybe somebody in California, where 70+% of their shipments are going out to the East Coast. they're shipping a lot further. Their average zone might be zone 7, zone 8. Okay? What are the zones? What are the zones? All right. Here's the zones. Zones, there is no zone 1 with UPS and FedEx. Okay? So just ignore that. Zone 2 through 8. I'm centrally located here in the United States. I'm up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, or suburb of. My average zone out of here is 5. Picks up a lot of the population on the East Coast and the South. I pick up a little bit of zone 6 in northern Florida. Zone 6 takes me out through kind of the west. Not a lot of population out there. And then zone 7, the West Coast and southern Florida. That's where I hit zone 7. But my average zone is zone 5 out of here. So your shipping costs, your average cost can vary considerably depending on where you are. And again, that's just good to know. So it kind of helps you understand where your customers are, why your costs are, why costs are different, etc. But those are the 2 different platforms that I've used. Again, Go Shippo and Pirate Ship. Pirate Ship has the reporting. You pay up front. You don't have an account number. Can't claim any money back guarantees. It is what it is. Go Shippo, you have to have a UPS account number. You have to have a payment type on file with them. You have to go to them to use their analytics and their reporting to determine your average cost. A little more work for me, too much work. But both of them have great rates. So that is what I wanted to talk about with shipping. And again, just make sure when you're looking at these average costs, you want to add in all those extras, styrofoam boxes, liners, heat packs if you use those, etc. Don't forget those when you're trying to come up with your average total landed cost to move fish. So anyways, I do want to answer. We still have 48 people, so we're going to just hold on here for just 1 second. There are 3 questions. We're right at the end here, so let's just finish this up. I have 3 questions that people have asked me over the course of the past few months, quite a bit. So I want to answer those questions. And they're going to be quick, okay? Real quick. What other plecos do you breed? I'm known to breed the L134s. Everybody knows I have 134s, to a lesser extent 397s. I'm going to show you the plecos that, and I'm going to add in my brother's fish room because him and I kind of work together. In the past 12 months, these are the species of plecos that we have successfully bred between his fish room and my fish room. And we work closely together, and even though his fish in his fish room are his and mine are mine, we work so closely together that we kind of just look at it as a business together. 134s, 260s, 397s, 494s, 201s, 66, L333s, the 411s, and the LDA01s. Those are the plecos that we spawned this last year. Those are still the plecos that are actively breeding right now, with the exception of the 260s. The 260s aren't breeding right now. We do have quite a few other plecos in addition to those, okay? These are the plecos that we bred. These are the other plecos that we're working with. So in all, there's 25. In fact, there's one that I forgot to add here. There's another ancestress on here that isn't included. So 26 different species of plecos that we are actively working with as partners, if you will. Brother and brother partnership. So those are the plecos that we're working with, and I think at least half of these will be spawning by next year at this time. So really excited that we're going to have a lot larger selection of fish to offer next year at this time. So it just, you got to have patience with these fish. It takes forever to grow them out, to get the right ratios, to get them conditioned, and to get them spawning. And but we are optimistic, and we're really excited about all the different fish that we have coming up. What do you feed Corydoras fry? In fact, I got asked this by one of the channel members just yesterday or earlier today on an email. So Corydoras fry For the first 2 days, don't feed anything. They have a yolk sac. They have to absorb that first. Give them a couple days to absorb that yolk sac. Once they absorb that yolk sac, the first food is going to vary a little bit depending on which species of Corydoras you're working with. If you've ever picked Corydoras eggs on more than one species, you might notice that some eggs are a lot smaller than others. For example, the orange Venezuelanus, really, really tiny eggs. The Corydoras schultzii black, real small eggs. The Corydoras duplicarius, big eggs, really big eggs. CW49s, big eggs. Those little tiny fry sometimes aren't even big enough to take, I don't know if they are big enough to take microworms or not, but I like to start those smaller Corydoras fry out with just like a powdered type food, like maybe 50 to 100 micron or 100 to 200 micron golden pearls. Just take a little pinch, stick your fingers in the fry box and make sure it falls down to the bottom. And that's what I'll feed. I also like to put some plant matter in each fry box so they can feed on any little microorganisms that are coming off, the Java moss or, hornwort or whatever. Just some little munchies there for them. But assuming they're taking microworms, I'm going to keep them on microworms. And the larger ones, like the duplicarius, the CW49s, they'll take microworms right out of the gate after day 2. Day 2 through 7, I'll just keep them on microworms and just feed them microworms. Maybe if my microworm culture is getting a little tapped out, maybe I'll drop in some golden pearls or smartemia or decapsulated brine shrimp, something like that. After about a week, regardless of species, after about a week, and sometimes before with some of the larger fry, might be day 4, day 5 for duplicarius and CW49s, they can start taking live baby brine shrimp. Once you get your Corydoras fry on live baby brine shrimp, stick with it. Just stick with it. And when you see those little orange bellies, you're golden. The hard part's over. Now it's just putting enough food in front of them, doing enough water changes to keep them healthy and keep them growing. You're there. So that's what I feed little Corydoras, and kind of the timing of it all. I do want to say that I'll periodically drop in maybe like some blackworm pellets or bloodworm pellets as well. And as that disintegrates, the little baby Corydoras will munch on that. So once they get larger, though, I like to feed a growth food from Ken's Fish. And it's called Ken's Premium Growth Meal. And it comes in 4 sizes. Size 0, 1, 2, and 3. And I like sizes 0 and 1. That's what I usually feed in my fish room. And the ingredients are good enough. It's got really high protein, like 55, 56% protein, good fat content for those fry development. So it works out well. It's cheap food, inexpensive. I mean, inexpensive, cheap, not. But the fish love it. They absolutely love it. And I just put a little bit in a cup. I'll take an oral syringe, suck some up, and then just go around from tank to tank and just drop some in. Scleromystax barbatus fry, just pounding it. They just absolutely love it. I think I have the orange Venezuelanus from last year. Yeah, look at that. Look at those colors. Just absolutely stunning. They just love it. But it's not just the small fish. It's not just the fry, even the big fish are going to take this and feed on it. Here we got some duplicarius. There's some Corydoras bozemanni in here. Here's CW49s. They just scoop it up. They love it. So it's called Ken's Growth Food. Green lasers are hitting it. They just love it. They actually had cleaned it up by the time I came back with my camera. Corydoras kanakis. And here, the big 4-inch long Scleromystax barbatus. Even the Scleromystax barbatus eat this little tiny food. The adults just love it. So that's what I like to feed. That's what I like to feed my Corydoras fry. All right, last question. Where can I buy your fish? Okay, Get Gills. I sell 2 different ways. Direct contact through an email or private message. We can work out details. But I also sell on Get Gills. You go to Get Gills right now, you're not going to see my storefront because I only ship during the warm months. I don't want to use heat packs. I found them, my experience, they're too unreliable. And I've had too many bad heat packs. And I've lost a few fish in the cold winter. So I just don't even do it anymore. I just don't. So other people are a lot more successful at it and don't have the issues with it that I experience. And that's good for them. I don't do it. So May is generally when I start shipping through September. So May through September is when I ship. And that's about it. So that pretty much wraps up what I had on my agenda tonight. We went way longer than I was expecting. So my apologies to anybody that wanted to hop over to Dan's Fish. With that being said, I will answer a couple of questions if anybody has questions, but I do ask that if you do have a question, highlight at TM Aquatics. But please have it relate to the content in tonight's stream. I don't want to talk about medications. I don't give medical advice because I'm not a veterinarian. I don't want to talk about arowanas because I never kept them. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert at all things fish. So with that said, if there are any questions that you have, keep it to the fish that we talked about in tonight's presentation, whether it's shipping on the shipping platforms or the L134s, breeding corridors, anything like that. Go ahead and ask away, and I'll just wait. I know there's a little bit of a delay, so if anybody has any questions, go ahead and let me know. Have the CW49s bred for me? Yes, they have, Deb. In fact, I showed it earlier today, or on tonight's stream. I only got one spawn out of them. They dropped maybe 30 eggs. I did end up with about 12 fry, and they're on baby brine shrimp now, so we're good to go. We'll probably, all 12 of them should make it. They're a tough one. I'm not going to lie. They're one of the tougher corridors. I've had fertility issues with them. The male's just not doing their job right. I don't know if that's what's happening, but I've had a lot of drops from the CW49s where I didn't get any eggs to hatch. So the fact that we got 12 out of about 30, I'm fine with that. Last year, I only bred about 30 CW49s out of this fish room. So I'm happy with that. Any success with that fish is positive. So yeah, so thank you for the question. So L21, underrated. I'm not familiar with the L20. I see a question. At what age does the L134 mature enough to start breeding? I always say 2 to 2.5 years. I had fish at around age 2 spawn for me successfully, but typically 2.5 years is kind of when you can expect them to start breeding. With that said, my 134s are very seasonal, and they only start breeding and showing signs of wanting to breed when it's the wet season in the southern hemisphere, which is right now. So my fish room comes to life. In fact, all my plecos are this way. I know other people. In fact, I have a good friend over in Wisconsin. He's breeding all 12 months out of the year. His fish are going. Mine just don't. It is what it is. I don't know if it's because my main breeders are wild caught, and maybe my F1 generation and F2 generations will be a little less like that, but 2.5 years to answer your question is about average. But again, it can, they can be 2.5 years and it can be June and they might not do anything until December. Again, mine are very, very, very seasonal. So, so that's the answer. Never kept the clown pleco. I shouldn't say it. I have kept them as single species. Never worked with them as far as breeding. I don't believe they're a real challenging pleco to breed, from what I understand. But I've never kept them outside of. It's probably been 15, 20 years since I had a clown pleco. Nice fish though. Nice fish. How often are you doing water changes in your 134 tanks? 2 times a week? Once a week? Okay. It depends. My standard routine throughout the year is 150% water change on all my pleco tanks weekly. It usually doesn't take more for me to, once they reach breeding and breeding season hits my fish room, I usually don't have to do any more than that. This year, they kind of started out slow, and I kind of got them going. In fact, I've had one successful spawn. I have one trapping down there right now with them. I have a 397 trapping, and my 494s are going to be back in a cave here within 2-3 days, guaranteed. But I had to increase the water change, and I've been doing 2-3 water changes, 50% water changes on my L134 tanks for the past week. Earlier in the stream, if you were here, I talked about a video that was just posted on YouTube, and it was an interview by Hans George Evers, and he talks about doing 50% water changes with these fish every 2 days. Every other day, do a 50% water change to get them breeding routinely and regularly. So 50% every other day. I haven't tried that yet. He's a lot more knowledgeable and skilled than I am, by far. So I might increase my water changes. So I don't know if I have the RO capacity to do all my pleco tanks every other day, because I have Corydoras tanks and the 31 tanks, and I got a 150 gallon per day RO system. So I'm not sure that's possible. So, all right. Any other questions? Sean, I've tried contacting you via email. I don't know if that's directed at me. How often do you look at my email? I look at my email every day. So if you've tried sending me email, I don't know if it's ending up in spam or what. Try again. My email address, just so everybody knows, go to my YouTube page, go to TM Aquatics, go over to About, come down. You can view my email address right here. Okay. Oops. Shoot. Wrong screen. Sorry about that. Here's my YouTube channel. Click on the About tab. Click on the About tab, and this will come up. View email address. Send me an email. If you have sent me an email, or try sending me another email. If I don't respond to it or get it, then maybe just post a comment on my most recent video. I do check those, and perhaps we'll be able to get in touch that way. So appreciate your patience with that. So I have zebra plecos that stayed small around 2 inches. Is that normal or common? Zebra plecos are pretty slow growing fish. There are some that say they reach sexual maturity at 2 years. I've not had any success with zebra plecos, so I'm not a zebra pleco expert. Someone that you might want to reach out to with that question, though, down at the bottom of my YouTube page, I have some featured channels here. Okay, and I switched screens again. Craig, him and his daughter, Olivia, they have a fish room. They're over in the UK. Craig knows plecos really, really well. And he's one of my sources that I go to for information. Malik up in Canada is very successful with zebra plecos. You might want to reach out to Malik. I do know that zebra plecos are very slow growing, and it can often take them 3-4 years to reach full size, sexual maturity, etc. So you just have to be patient. If you're feeding them good food, Dr. Baslier, Evo Aquaristick, you're doing water changes, keeping the nitrates low, keeping the tank clean, there should be no issues with them. It might seem like they've stalled out. I know what you mean, because my L174s don't look like they've grown at all in the past 3-4 months. But they're probably growing, you just don't notice it. But hopefully they keep growing for you. Your 134s eat during the day? I do night feeding. No, they don't. My 134s, I don't see anything but tails during the day. I only feed my plecos at night. It's just the routine that I've gotten them on. My L494s would probably eat during the day because they do come out. When I feed the ditherfish, that's one of the few tanks I have ditherfish in. When I feed the ditherfish and some of that food reaches the bottom, they'll come out and they'll eat on flake food or pellets or whatever, bloodworms, whatever I put in there. But my 134s, No, no, they don't. So I know people that have them conditioned to come out. I see these videos on YouTube all the time with people in their plecos, and they'll drop food and their zebras come out, their 236s come out, their leopard frogs come out. Not me, but I've not really trained them to do that either. I've always just fed at night. So I feed 5 to 10 minutes after the lights go out. Are you going to have any 134s available this spring, Jeff? Yes. Yes. I hope to have a lot. And if I have a lot, I hope to do something a little special for channel members. I hope to do something a little special on the price for channel members on the L134 as well, because I think that's a fish that is really underrated in the hobby. It's related to the 134s. It's a Picoltia. Gets a little bigger, but they're gorgeous fish. They're just stunning when they're juveniles. But right now I have only one spawn of 134s, but I do have a trapping right now that hopefully will be just as big. And again, I have 5 groups of 134s. Only one of those groups right now is actively spawning. My wild caught adults have not spawned for me yet this year. They're close, but they just haven't started. I'm increasing the water change, and I'll probably have to do what Hans says every other day. Another group did spawn, but the eggs disappeared. So I don't know if I have a bad male in there that likes caviar, likes very expensive caviar. If that's the case, I'll have to pull him out. He does appear to be the alpha male, though, and that's one thing with the L134 is often there's going to be an alpha male where only the females are always going to go to that one male. If he's not doing his job, don't be afraid to pull that fish and let one of the other males step into that role. I did that last year with my wild caughts, and it worked out perfect. But I do have another group where they did spawn once, and those eggs just vanished. I think he ate them. The TDS was spot on, so he had to have eaten them. So yeah, we'll have 134s. It's my goal to have at least 150, which isn't a lot, but I have a small fish room. I don't have a big fish room, and I talked earlier in the stream, I have no grow out space. So, and it's a problem that my brother has in his fish room. We just went out and started buying up plecos, and I mentioned that earlier. I mean, here's the plecos we've bred in the past 12 months. That's 1/3 of what we have for pleco species. These are the other plecos that we have in our fish rooms. And on top of that, we're sitting on 20 different species of Corydoras. No grow out space. It's a problem. But I hope to have at least 150 L134s this year. And again, my goal next year is 300. I want to have at least 300 next year. So let's keep going. Could just be my group or something they just don't like about the setup. So if you have, Jeff, if you have a group of 134s, maybe we can connect off on the side somehow. Send me an email, give me your email address, reach out to me, and maybe we can just have a conversation. So I'd like to hear, I'd like to see a picture of your tank, and I'd like to kind of understand what the chemistry is. What are the temps? What's the TDS? What's your pH? Anything you can tell me like that. What's your filtration? What do you have in there for decor? What do you have for substrate? What do you have for dither fish? What are you feeding? All that type of information. And I will do my best to give whatever advice I can, and maybe some ideas on what you might be able to try differently. Not that you're trying anything wrong. You could be doing everything right. I mean, I have groups where I'm doing everything right and they're not spawning for me either. But there might be something that you're missing that maybe we'll be able to figure that out. So just reach out and be more than happy to help out, because that's the whole point of this YouTube thing. I'm not doing this as a living. This is not my career. This is just a side hobby and a side hustle. And I enjoy when I can help others and provide information so that you can be successful in your fish room. So you're in northern Wisconsin. Are you getting pounded with any of this snow? I think you guys might be getting a little bit of snow. We haven't gotten any yet out of this big storm, but that low front that came through here, my brother, we have a first spawn out of his fish room. And let me show you this. This is a special one. Corydoras gassii. You're not going to find this Corydoras in your LFS, and you're not going to find this. I don't know where you could find this fish. It took us forever to find a group of gassii, and I finally picked some up from my buddy Eddie Ortiz at the last Cataclysm, and gave them to my brother and put them in his fish room. They just spawned last night for the very first time when this big low pressure came. My 134s trapped for me, and I got a same night trap and same night spawn out of my L397s with this big low pressure. So, but yeah, we're not getting any snow yet, but I think you guys might be getting hit up there. So, Leo, I'm driving myself crazy. I need some pleco spawns from either my 471s, 134s, or 397s. Be patient on those 471s. I'm telling you, they're too young. If you bought them from Dan's Fish, they're still too young. You got another 9 months to a year. They might look like they're sexually mature, but unless you got some that were older than mine. But you've been working with the 134s for a while, Leo. So you need to get those going, buddy. So, but yeah, if you want to talk about it too, I'll be more than happy to talk offline with you. So, let's see. Did it rain all morning? Now 4 inches of wet snow. Yeah, the back-breaking snow. Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Let me know if you have any last questions. Otherwise, we're going to wrap this up. I went way longer, way longer. And if we all get out of here, we can head over to Dan's Fish. Still make it in time for his giveaway. I don't know. But this is like the first time I've missed Dan's Fish stream. So my apologies again to anybody that wanted to be part of that. So let's see. Yeah, it is a good looking Cory. They're beautiful looking Corys. Beautiful looking Corys. Yeah, yours might be bigger, but just Leo, be patient. That's it with plecos. You got to have patience. I know that sounds cliche, but gosh darn it. I mean, again, look at the list of plecos that we're working with here that we have not successfully spawned in some of these groups. The 450s we've had forever. The 75s, we have big L75s. They haven't spawned yet. My 46s haven't spawned yet because I didn't have any males. The 14s aren't quite big enough. They take 5-6 years to grow out. But 257s, we've had these for years, no spawns. So just be patient. And then when it happens, it's a little different feeling when you put in the years to spawn a pleco versus maybe you pick up a pair of guppies and they drop fry the next day. It just feels different. It just feels more rewarding, but that could just be me. But anyways. All right, Jerry, we'll see you later, buddy. What's your go-to temperature for the 134s? 81 degrees, Leo. I talked about this earlier. I set the temperature controller at 81. It's an Inkbird temperature controller, and I know you're familiar with these. I set it at 81 degrees, so that Eheim heater kicks on it, and I have a 2-degree variance. So it kicks up to 81, and then when it reaches 81, it'll stop the heater, it'll take the power off from the heater, and then the temperature will drop back down to 79. And then at 79, the heater will kick on again. So it's always between 79 and 81. That's my temp for my 134s. So, Scott, great information. Thanks. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for stopping by. So, tempted in trying the 400s. Leo, you're going to have to wait and find them, though. They're not easy to find. My buddy Craig over in the UK breeds them. I have a group. Dan had a group. I bought them all. I'm not sure. I don't know anybody else that's working with the 400s right now. So if you can find some 400s, let me know. So I'd like to add some extra DNA to my group. Appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you. All right. So, all right. With that being said, we're going to wrap it up. Way too long the way it was. So I want to thank everybody, each and every one of you, for taking time out of your day to stop by and join the stream. Appreciate the support. Members, again, big shout out and a thank you to anybody that became a member. And I hope you're enjoying the additional content that I'm putting out. I'm enjoying actually putting out the members only content because I can just go down, take my cell phone out, just shoot a real quick video or a raw video. I don't have to do any editing. I can upload it, and I've been enjoying that part of it, to be honest with you. And I enjoy sharing some of the behind the scenes stuff. But so thank you, members. Thank you for everybody that stopped by, watched, whether you watched live, whether you came back after Dan's live stream, or whether you're catching it on a replay, and you're part of the replay crew. I greatly appreciate it. Feel free to drop an email to me with any questions that you have, or comments. Comment on the video down below after this post on YouTube. And with that being said, not sure when the next stream will be. It just depends on what type of traction we get with this one and what type of comments we get. But there will be another one, I assure you. And with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Again, I appreciate every one of you for stopping by and taking time out of your day to watch this. Until the next one, folks, take care, happy holidays, and we'll catch y'all later.
Thank you.